D-52 heading to Astrid Ames' residence. Over.
Copy.
I'm sorry, but Mrs. Ames can't see you now. She's quite distraught over Miss Elk Moon's death. She's resting on doctor's orders.
Then may we speak with you briefly?
Certainly. Please, sit down.
You're Mrs. Ames' housekeeper?
Assistant. I have been faithfully at her side for almost 17 years.
Did you know the victim?
I didn't know her. Mrs. Ames owns several of her pots, and Miss Elk Moon was cleaning a pot for us in preparation for returning it to the Santa Vera Pueblo.
There's some indication the pot may have been a motive for the murder.
That pot has brought nothing but grief to Mrs. Ames.
Grief? In what way?
No, well, it's not for me to say, but... Well, Mrs. Ames has had a difficult time with her only living relative, a nephew, Ronald Ames. When the story came out in the newspaper about Mrs. Ames returning the pot to the Indians, he came over and exploded at his aunt. Said she had no right to give it away, and that he forbid it.
Did he have any say in the matter?
But the pot was left to Astrid. Oh, forgive me, Mrs. Ames, by her sister, Bernice. Ronald Ames' mother. She died several years ago, and the poor woman foolishly promised her son that Astrid would leave the pot to him in her will.
And did she? I mean, before she offered to return it to the Pueblo.
I don't know. But I do know that Ronald Ames is a greedy, selfish young man. He accused her of squandering his inheritance, and that's when she asked him to leave.
Any idea how much the pot is worth?
Oh, its only value to Mrs. Ames was aesthetic, but I understand it's priceless.
Did Ron Ames know the pot was being cleaned by Anna Elk Moon?
Anna cleaned and restored several pots for Mrs. Ames in the past. He could have guessed as much.
Was the pot insured?
No.
I gather it's quite a financial loss on top of everything else.
Naturally, that's why we're hoping you can recover it.
Did Miss Moon call Mrs. Ames any time on the day she was murdered?
Yesterday? Not that I'm aware of.
Where were you at the time of the murder?
Oh, Miss Carrie March, a friend of Mrs. Ames, came by for drinks at 6:30. Afterward, Mrs. Ames and I ate dinner by the fire. Then I read to her until 10:30, and she fell asleep.
We'll call on Mrs. Ames later on. Thanks for your help.
You're more than welcome.
Now that's a pleasant woman, mean enough to shoot her own mother.
There's an important lead from Carrie March. The chief requests that you proceed to her residence immediately.